Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Q&A. I am not podcast producer Bryan Anthony Davis. I have to admit that. I am behind the steel curtain co-editor Dave Schofield. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But before we even get into Bryan or myself, we got to get into the main man, the whole reason you all are tuning in today, Tony Defeo. Tony, how are you doing today?
I agree with everything you just said there. I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing okay. Sorry, we were supposed to start right at 5:00, but of course it doesn't fail that probably around 4:40, 4:45, the Steelers make a roster move. So of course I'm going on with trying to do the breaking news story for the website and everything else. So therefore we got bumped back a little bit there. Me not being the regular on this show, I wanted to talk some things over with Tony to make sure that we were good there. But I think we're set up and ready to go. I think we're on YouTube, if I look correctly. It looks like we're there. So here we are. It looks like we're here. Captain Underpants is in the live chat along with Javman. Lots of stuff to talk about here, Tony. Just some new developments. First one is the obvious. We've got when it comes to Behind the Steel Curtain, and this also includes the podcast, had some changes happen over the weekend. Notice I announced myself as co-editor of Behind the Steel Curtain because I worked very hard to try to find a way for one Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman. That's not. I got to change. I should have changed his last name too because none of those other two are his real name. Is back with Behind the Steel Curtain. We are now doing this job together. When Jeff stepped away to try another venture, I stepped up into the editor role. Jeff was ready to come back. I was like, I wanted to do everything I could to have Jeff back for the website because that's just better for business. And Jeff's like, no, you've been doing great. Let's just tackle this thing together. So that's what we're doing. And with that, oh my goodness, if you are listening right now on YouTube live, or if you're listening to this in podcast form, you haven't found the gem yet. Jeff did his first audio show that came out this morning. That's called Let's Ride. It's even got the whole little audio clip of the who ride, we ride, who ride, we ride. That whole big thing. That's the name of the show. Let's Ride. We got music by Jerry Cherry Band, who's a regular here with YouTube, that gave us some music for it. And it was just a fabulous show. I already listened to it today. So if you have not, you could check us out on Twitter. We now have an Instagram account. On our Facebook page, we have links to that show on there right now. Tony, did you even know that show was out there to listen to yet today?
I retweeted it. So I was being a team player and I retweeted it. I haven't had a chance to listen to it, but I wasn't sure if it was on YouTube. But if it's audio only, that means it's not on YouTube. Is that correct?
That's correct. What we're doing. I also want to talk to everyone about our formatting coming now. Okay. I've got some people coming in here that said, like Wes said, he already checked it out. He said it was excellent. I listened to it. I had to run to the landfill today, and I was able to catch about 2/3 of it on my trip there and back by listening to it. And it was really great to hear Jeff do that. But these are audio only podcasts. So they're available anywhere podcasts are. I don't know all the things. I use Apple Podcasts on my iPhone. Stitcher's another one. I'm not into all what these crazy things are, but it's there. We're going to eventually be having some audio only podcasts every weekday morning. They are generally 20 to 30 minute shows to listen to. And Tony is going to be a part of one of them starting next week, because for those of you tuning in now to the Q&A, the retro show, which Tony and Bryan have been doing afterwards, is going to be going to the audio format that will be the show that goes out on Tuesday mornings. So that's one. So Jeff's going to be doing these Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He might even fill in more this week because with Bryan being away and me covering for Bryan, I'm going to be doing a show, whether it be just me or me possibly maybe bring in some Big Bro Show every once in a while. I'm going to be doing the Stat Geek as an audio only show Thursday mornings. Which means tomorrow night you won't tune in to Stat Geek on YouTube. You'll be tuning into a new show that is my brother and myself, entitled The Sco Bro Show. So that was suggested to us by somebody in the live chat a long time ago. So that tells us that part of it. I know right now Tony's just like, yeah, I'm just listening to everything Dave has to say. And I want to get Tony's thoughts on this, but I got to get the whole spiel out there. Because the other thing that we're doing, go ahead, Tony.
No. I mean, the people need to know. I'm learning myself. Would that be available on the SB Nation app? Because I have that on my phone.
That is a great question. I guess I'm going to have to figure that one out because I don't know if the podcasts are available there or not. I am not familiar with anything with the SB Nation app. So that's a really good question. I think we should get that out there. But I also want to talk about the YouTube shows because this is part of this is you all here right now on YouTube, but this is also going to be as usual available the next day on audio. We are trying to gauge what the audience would like. What does the YouTube audience like? What does the audio audience like? The podcast audience. YouTube likes the hour shows that we do. That's the feedback that we got. The audio shows like shorter shows because not everyone has the same time available. So what we're going to do with our YouTube shows, we're not going to do what we've done in the past where we stopped the show, reloaded a new show. Everyone had to wait around, come back in. That's not what we're doing. About halfway through our show today, we are going to end part 1 and we're going to roll into part 2. And therefore these will, for those of you that don't say, oh, I can't listen to the podcast right now, I don't have an hour. You're not going to need a full hour. You can listen to one part of it and then you can listen to the next part. Because I know sometimes the podcast, they don't save where you are and things like that. So we're trying this out to see if this would help our audio listeners to give them something that they would prefer. What do you think of that, Tony? Should we just be giving the people what they want? Is that what we're ultimately trying to do?
That's always what's best for business, giving the people what they want. That's you can't go against the grain too often. So the people want that, we have to give it to them.
Yeah, and I've got to answer this in case I was not clear. People were asking, so less live chats? No. We are not scaling back anything on YouTube. Nothing. You are going to get the same lineup with some different names of shows because of everything. And I'll talk about that here in just a moment. That's not changing. You're going to have a YouTube show every day from behind the steel curtain. We're just adding some extra audio stuff. It's a lot more work to do. I mean, Tony, it takes me a long time to try to get this face pretty enough to even be on camera that people just won't run away in droves. So it takes a lot of work. If I do an audio show, I don't have to worry about it. So
I shaved right before I came on.
Yeah, I probably should have done that, but I haven't trimmed this off in let's see. I've been married 17 years, so it's been longer than that. I'll say that.
Oh,
so
okay.
No, we want these podcasts are not the same without our Steelers family here in the live chat. So that's not changing. The only change you're going to see on YouTube is in the middle of the show, you're going to hear us end the show just in what we say and say, Ed, we're back when we're rolling on. So that's the only difference you're going to see on YouTube rather than just say, what's Dave doing? What's going on there? That's why we have to say something. We can't continue this week without saying that part of our lineup change has to do with, as you know, Lance had really scaled back his availability as of late. He had some things going on with his family and some other things in life. And when we asked Lance, is this really what's best for you now? And he's like, with stuff going on in my life and having to think of the content and everything right now, Lance decided to step away from doing the podcast at Behind the Steel Curtain. But Lance is welcome back anytime Lance wants to come back. Lance has the platform. All he has to do is let us know. But moving forward, we didn't want to continue to keep saying, and Lance Williams will be on this show. And then there had to be a change So we just wanted to try to say, Lance, let's get some regularity. What do you want to do? Because Jeff was coming in to just do these audio shows, but now with Lance stepping away, we have some other things. We have two Jeffs, because we have Jeff Hartman's going to coming back on the preview, because Michael Beck's going to be stepping out of that into two separate shows that are both, one will be a solo show on Friday night. The other will be a show with the other Jeff, Jeffrey Benedict, on Wednesday nights. And then Sundays we're looking at, if you didn't catch yesterday's show, oh my goodness, it was so entertaining, of Tales from 2 a.m. or exactly, I don't remember exactly how it's phrased, from Mr. 2 a.m. himself, Bryan Anthony Davis. So Tony, you don't have to worry about this. You're just sitting, you're still here on Mondays, and you're still or on Steelers Brunch with Tony. What do you think of that? Do you like that? Do you like change that doesn't affect you?
I sure do. I'm a Taurus. I don't like my routine being messed with at all. So this is great for me. I feel like I'm a franchise quarterback. You have to placate to me all the time. So this is great. Just don't mess with my routine.
Yeah, exactly. We don't, once you get comfortable. Oh yeah. And speaking of messing with routines, have you been to the behindthesteelcurtain.com within the last hour there, Mr. Defeo?
I tried it on my phone, and I was able to get in, but I tried to get on my laptop, and I couldn't see the comments. So I guess I was too I shouldn't have been dismissive of people the other day when I said, it won't be a big deal. Maybe it will take a lot to get used to.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know what we're referring to, SB Nation rolled out a new commenting system that they're rolling out to all the NFL sites over the next couple of weeks. Behind the Steel Curtain was one of the first 4 to get it. Today, I was told it was going to be this morning. Then I was told it was going to be 3 o'clock. It ended up being, I think, after 4 o'clock. But it's there, it's out. And unfortunately, every comment from every article before that has temporarily gone away. They will come back and be restored, which kind of made it frustrating for this to happen in the middle of the day. It would have been much easier to happen, maybe overnight. But it is what it is. It's one of these things. I had no say into what it was when it came out or anything like that. Jeff hasn't been here for the last 2 months, so there was nothing there. A lot of things that people don't like about it. Apparently, there's some nice new features, but I don't know that it outweighs what we lost.
I'll say this. I've been around since 2010, and I remember 2012, 2013, there were some changes, and people weren't too happy about it, but we got used to it, and the site was better for it. So, it's always tough in the beginning to deal with the change, when you're so used to how a format is, but we'll get used to it, and it'll be like old hat in probably a couple weeks.
Yeah, and you know what? I hope they listen. There were some things that frustrated me. I'll tell you, I had to watch a webinar about it. It was very long, and I had to break it up into several parts, much like we're trying to do with our podcasts, so you don't have to devote a massive chunk of time all at once. And there was several things that they kept saying, well, this is going away because it wasn't used very much. I'm like, this was used on Behind the Steel Curtain all the time. Right. And certain things that I used as tools as an editor to know new comments and be able to find them easier. We're hoping that I understand the problem, and this is true with Steeler fans everywhere, even if you're not someone who is a regular on the website. Change is sometimes tough to deal with. And the problem is when you're dealing with old software, they had pretty much maxed out anything that they could do. And the software was so old. Mm-hmm. My wife's a software engineer, and she understands, you have a programming system, and then you get to a point, there's only so much you can do with it. And you have to upgrade it to a new system. And that's what happened here. So hopefully that means that there's more that they can do with it to bring these other things back. But we don't need to talk about that much more, do we, Tony? We need to get on to this Q&A because I'm excited to be here in place of Bryan. I hope I'm just as jovial as him. You ready to dive into this?
I'm ready, man. I'm ready to go. Monday afternoon quarterback. Let's do it.
Excellent. Well, I got this idea that I threw to you. I'm like, Tony, did you know what you were going to do for the show? I have one idea. And you're like, let's roll with it. And it's from an article that's going to be out on the website tomorrow at some point by Ryland B., where he it's funny because he also referenced back to an article from Flip Fisher that went over the weekend about how our coverage of training camp is going to be different this year. It's very limited media, no fans. It's going to be really hard to get that information of what's going on. I mean, everything's going to basically be coming through the Steelers, which is still better than nothing. Some information is better than no information at all. Wouldn't you agree, Tony?
Yeah, the way this offseason's been, I'm starving for information. So yes, whatever we can get, I'll be happy with.
Yeah, and some people are like, are we going to get people that are going to be critical about stuff? Because if they're employees of the Steelers, how much do they really want to say? That was something that Flip had brought up. But so to get a really honest evaluation, like, oh yes, Ben Roethlisberger looks fantastic throwing. Oh, he completed a long pass to Juju Smith-Schuster. Well, who was the defender? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I think Flip might have even used an example of someone who has already been released from the team, because the Steelers did cut back to 80 players yesterday. But the thing is, yes, that's a disadvantage to us as fans. And yes, we can't properly evaluate. But Mike Tomlin has said in the past that a lot of times the preseason games just confirm what he's seen in practice at training camp. Isn't that a good point, Tony?
He said it several times. I've taken comfort in that the past few weeks, knowing that there's not going to be any preseason games, because last year Tuzar Skipper, he lit it up and he didn't make the team. So obviously what they do in training camp weighs heavily into their decisions as far as making the roster or not. Well,
and you brought up our case in point for this question and answer that we're going to be asking, that we're going to turn to the live chat to get some of their answers here once we kind of spell it out for you. Tuzar Skipper is going to be who we're going to use because it's fresh. It was last year. I mean, how in the world is BTSC going to have an Isaac Redman Award winner this year, Tony? How are we going to pull that off?
Unless we get somebody who can peek into Heinz Field with some binoculars from Mount Washington. I don't know.
It's going to be very difficult. We're going to be, because that's mainly built off of the preseason games as much as anything.
Right.
So last year's darling was Tuzar Skipper. Now it's funny because you said something about him not making the team. We kind of got to clarify that. He originally made the team. He made the 53.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But it was only for a week. He didn't even make it to the week 1 game because he was a player. He led the NFL in sacks during the preseason last year. Wasn't even an undrafted free agent right after the draft. He was a rookie minicamp tryout player that, along with Devlin Hodges, that earned a contract based on rookie minicamp. Both of them. That was their story. And then everyone starts talking about it. As we know, Hodges did not make the team, wasn't even on the practice squad the first week it wasn't until Ben's injury. Well, actually, sorry, it wasn't until the Dobbs trade that it was with am I right there with Duck?
Yeah. Dobbs initially made a team and then they traded him, and they needed they needed a third quarterback, so they signed Duck.
So Duck was with the team before Ben was hurt. Well, he was on the 53. They put him on the practice squad, which was surprising. They only had 2 on the active. So, but with Tuzar Skipper, everyone was talking about this guy. So the Steelers put him on the 53. Let everybody else do their whole waiver claims. Everyone set up their teams and whatnot. And the Steelers tried to do something pretty smart. What they tried to do was wait until right before that first week and say, this is when we're going to do it, because everyone's going to be set with their rosters. And then we can sneak him back onto the practice squad. Except it didn't work because he got picked up by the New York Giants. So they lost Skipper for a while, but then when they put him on their practice squad, the Steelers stole him back, which was great. And that's why he's here. What if the Tuzar Skipper situation was in our 2020 world? In our COVID-19, no preseason, much different training camp world. Did the Steelers put someone like that on the 53 to start? Or do you think he's a prime candidate to say, hey, nobody knows about this guy. we'll just let him go. We won't say much. We'll get him back on the practice squad, and continue to develop in there, especially knowing that about the pull up from the practice squad rules that they have this year. Do you think that might be the Steelers' mentality with these kind of players this year, Tony?
Yeah, it's a good point, because how would the opposing teams get any information on players? And as you mentioned, and as Flip mentioned in his article over the weekend, it was a good article. I read it. If these are team employees that are making up the media poll, what if the coach goes to them and says, "Hey, could you keep this guy's camp performance out of the news, and don't try to play it up so much. We want to hide this guy on the practice squad because due to numbers." Yeah, so I can see that happening for sure.
Yeah. Now, just to clarify, because there's some questions here in the live chat, I'm not talking about Tuzar Skipper this year and what the Steelers could do. I'm talking about if the situation arises this year, just like last year, where people wouldn't have known anything about him if it wasn't for the preseason games.
Right.
Is there somebody that the Steelers know this is something? I mean, I think back to Ramon Foster, his rookie year, when he made the team, because the Steelers knew as an undrafted free agent, if they let him go, someone else was going to pick him up because of what he showed through camp and through the preseason. If it was a situation this year with no preseason, maybe Ramon Foster wouldn't have been on the roster his first year. A player like that. So we're not saying these guys specifically, because that was going to be my next question. They let go of a couple undrafted free agents. They mainly let go of some XFL guys to get down to the 80. Do you think that could happen this year? Do you think there's somebody that the Steelers might just say, let's keep them under the radar and stash them on the practice squad, especially since it's expanded to 16 people for this season? It was supposed to go to 12, but due to COVID, they added another 4.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, anyone in particular you can think of?
Nobody I can think of offhand, except for maybe like a Carlos Davis, somebody like that, a 7th round pick, or somebody that didn't have a lot of great moments in college. He was a great athlete, but he didn't produce. And there were many that believed that with the proper coaching, he could be coached up into something much, much better than his draft pedigree. So somebody like that, one of the undrafted free agents for sure, because this is a year where somebody, like you said, with Tuzar Skipper, somebody like that isn't going to stand out in the preseason. There aren't going to be any preseason darlings. So this might be one of those years where you can stash a guy like that on a practice squad and hope that another team doesn't have a slew of injuries at one position and just comes looking at all the practice squads for a particular player who plays a particular position.
Exactly. And Tony, I kind of set you up with that question because, in my opinion, would we have had any reason to think about Tuzar Skipper was that player before last year's training camp? No way. No way. We didn't even know only because his name was cool. It was Tuzar Skipper. Was really about it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned. I completely forgot that he actually did make the 53-man roster.
Yeah,
but that is a perfect example of gamesmanship, because they kept him on the roster for right up until the very end. I forgot all about that. I was back in the before time. I forgot all about everything.
That was Donnie Holton that they cut him for.
I completely forgot about that, and that was a good point. And I could see a lot of that happening around the NFL this year.
Yeah, I would say a player like a player that some people think could earn one of the other defensive back spots that was undrafted, like a Trajan Bandy out of Miami, that he's someone, you could just maybe get him on the practice squad. People won't see much about him. But he was even a player that was projected to be drafted in the 6th or 7th round. So the Steelers, that's why they wanted to grab him up. It's going to be more likely that it's someone that you didn't expect, that you're constantly waiting to be the next person off the roster. Oh, well, who's that guy? Why are they keeping? I don't even know that name. Why are they keeping him around?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have, you're going to see, all of a sudden that the Steelers cut someone that you thought was possibly going to make the roster, and then and then someone like that still hanging around, and that could be why. That could be why. It's going to be some uncharted territory. Another example, there was a player, I do believe he had the biggest signing bonus out of any Steelers undrafted free agent this year. That was cut as part of the 10 this past weekend. I'm pretty sure he was an edge rusher or defensive lineman. It was one of those things out of Kentucky. The name's escaping me right now, but that's just one of those things that we have no idea what they're seeing right now. It's crazy. So,
right.
What do you think? Do you think because of this, we're not going to see surprises when it comes time to go to the 53-man roster, Tony? Do you think we're not going to see that Tuzar skipper on the 53 to start because of what the Steelers could possibly do to sneak him on?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be as many, simply because, like we talked about last week, there aren't as many starting spots up for grabs as there were in the past. And even the depth, some of those players are kind of established, like a Jordan Dangerfield. But we could have some surprises based on like a guy like a Dan McCullers, right? He's been here forever, and maybe they just say the heck with him, and they do keep one of those young guys that nobody's even thinking about making the team, who would normally make it onto the practice squad.
Yeah, and now Dan McCullers in that kind of situation, that's another thing that we're going to bring up and we're going to talk about here in the second half of the show. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get the answers to this question from the live chat, and we're going to get questions from the live chat for us in order to finish out the Steelers Q&A. So this is coming to a close of our part one of Steelers Q&A. So make sure that you stay with us and come back here for part two. And we are back with part two. YouTubers are probably like, what just happened? Yeah, we're back. We didn't go anywhere for you all. But here is the Steelers Q&A with Behind the Steel Curtain co-editor Dave Schofield sitting in for our podcast manager, Bryan Anthony Davis, who I didn't give the shout out the first show. Tony, I'll have to do that here in a second. Tony Defeo, of course you're here. You're with us as always. Already chiming in with some great stuff. Did you know why Bryant wasn't here today? Did you know the answer to that question?
It's his son's birthday, I believe.
Tomorrow is his son Connor's 13th birthday. So they went away for the evening to do something special with him tomorrow. And I told him, hey, Bryan, that family first. This is our Steelers family. So your family is part of our Steelers family, and we are taking care of you. So I told him I'd step up to the plate and finally get to have another show with Tony, because it's a lot of fun to be with him. And we were just asking the question of, are the Steelers going to be able to squeeze on some of these guys onto the practice squads? Like if it was in 2019, an example then would have been someone like a Tuzar skipper who made the active roster to start. Is it going to be easier to get them on the practice squad without these preseason games? We both think so. You brought up a great question about maybe it's going to come down to somebody like a Dan McCullers who's been around for a while when they don't want to hold on to someone like that. I'm on the other end of the spectrum there. I think McCullers' spot with the way the rules are this year is a lock, unfortunately, for some people right now, because he doesn't have any practice squad eligibility.
Right.
And I think teams are going to be forming their practice squads based on the guys that they have in their camp because of the familiarity. They're not going to be looking at a lot of other places. And if they have to decide between somebody like Dan McCullers and a Carlos Davis, or I hope this isn't, Dan McCullers or a Henry Mondu. I hope it's not McCullers or Buggs, because I think Isaiah Buggs should be on this roster. But if it's someone between those two, you're going to keep the guy without the practice squad eligibility, especially if you're pretty sure you can get the other guy onto the practice squad, because then you could always pull them up with the special 2-player. Every week, you got 2 players you can bring up from the practice squad to bring up to a 55-man roster on game day without having to waive anybody. Mm-hmm. But it's not smart to use all the time if you don't need it. So we can get into that more another time. Right. So, Tony, we have a super chat question. I'm going to bring it up now because we weren't into the questions from the Q&A yet. We were going to look at your guys' answers first, but I'm going to bring it up because I don't want to lose it, because we have $5 into the tip jar from Dave Shipley, who said, "You guys rock. Only question is Cam Sutton our deep 3 safety." What do you think, Tony?
Well, he's definitely one of their more versatile players in the secondary, a guy that they've moved around a lot. I'm not great X's and O's guy, so I really can't answer that question. But they have tried him at safety in the past, haven't they? They've played him at safety in years past. He's not just a corner, so I think this is year 4, so they're probably trying to make him as versatile as they possibly can to keep him around.
Yeah, I would say he's played in that safety role, but I don't know that he's played in it definitely as only having 2 safeties on the field. He's that guy that comes in certain packages where you could say, is he really a corner? Is he really a safety? Does it really matter what he's being classified? A lot of times you'll see both him and Hilton on the field together in certain packages. So technically I would say he's playing safety. The question is he the third guy if one of the other 2 go down? Did not have that last year. That question as much because of other players that were around, like Cam Kelly, who's not with the team anymore, and those kind of things. I think for this year, it very well could be, but we're not going to be able to know because we're not going to see training camp, are we?
Right, exactly. And you mentioned practice squad eligibility. A guy like Marcus Allen, who's been here for 2 years, and this might be a year that he doesn't make the cut because he hasn't shown much. Would he be eligible for the practice squad, or would that be somebody they would try to sneak onto the practice squad to try to get some more development out of him before,
Yeah.
I don't know how that works with a guy like that. Is somebody like that, would somebody like that be safe in an environment like this? Or would they say, you know what, we can't have him on our roster, but we want to try to sneak him under the practice squad? I don't know how those rules work.
Yeah, that's going to be tricky. But see, the problem is it takes, once you get them on your practice squad, I got to regroup with this. When you release your players for cut down, the only way a team can sign those players before the Steelers have a chance to put them on the practice squad is if they put them on their 53-man roster. Now, technically, another team could throw more money at them to sign on their practice squad initially. But once they're on the Steelers practice squad, the only way they come off is they have to go on the 53 of the team that takes them. So you're taking a serious flyer to do that.
Right.
So that's the thing. You have to take the risk. You have to take the chance of something. But if I think it depends on the position. If there seems like there's a lot of teams struggling for a safety, the Steelers might not want to have someone like Marcus Allen that they would try to get back onto the practice squad rather than keep on the 53. Which is very different. I'm trying to turn into the live chat to see if there was many answers about our exact question of how do you think the Steelers are going to handle this? Do you think they're more likely to try to squeeze people onto that? But the thing is, you all being the great Steelers family that we are in this great community, you all have been bringing up your own questions and everything else. I know I saw Ezra talk about the whole Bart Scott comments. Jeff had an article about that on the website today and whatever. Okay. So I'm just trying to see if Ryan O'Toole says Bart Scott has to be on crack. If you listen to his whole interview, his point wasn't that Troy Polamalu was not as great as Ed Reed. His point was that comparing a free safety with a strong safety is like comparing an inside linebacker to an outside linebacker. Just because they have one word in common, why not go that far? Well, of course, they're on opposite sides of the ball. An offensive lineman versus a defensive lineman. Well, they're both linemen, but right. They have a completely different function. So his point was it's hard to mix free and strong safeties. And I don't think people always understand that. when they go to talk about our two safeties, that they are two completely different roles.
Took me years to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, those two guys are the fact that they both got in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. I mean, they can rank them any way they want. I mean, I think the final say is that they're both first ballot Hall of Famers. So who cares if they it's all a matter of opinion at this point.
Yeah. I mean, that's like talking about that's like saying who's the better defender, Rod Woodson or Greg Lloyd. I mean, I'd go with Rod Woodson, but I mean, they don't play the same position. How do you really compare that?
Right.
It's so I got to tell this story. If I'm filling in for bad, I got to tell stories, right? Big Marv, shout out to Big Marv here in the live chat. He says, does anyone remember when Bart Scott was playing for the Jets? They're going to play us the next week in the playoffs. He said, can't wait. My little story that is, Jeff Hartman, as we're discussing what's being covered on the site and everything, and he says, I'll do an article about the Bart Scott comments. You know what my answer was? Can't wait.
Can't wait.
That's what I had to say to him.
And by the way, has any player gotten more mileage out of something where he didn't follow through? I mean, he said, I can't wait for the game, but it's not like they won the game. They lost. So, I mean, it's like the Carlton Fisk Game 6 home run. Mm-hmm. They still lost the next day. So come on.
Yeah, exactly. But that's one of those I quote all the time. Can't wait. We're talking about practice, man. I still love that with Allen Iverson. Herm Edwards, you play to win the game.
And of course, playoffs. That's the number one. I think everybody
playoffs. Yeah. My wife says that to me every year. Like tonight, when the Penguins game, it's tonight, right? I'm on the right day of the week, aren't I? When it's on, I'm like, you really need to see this. I'm like, it's the playoffs. I know that's going to be her answer. Playoffs? Right. You're talking about the playoffs?
Let's see. They're already in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Okay. Here's an answer that Thaddeus says. He says, Dave, I don't think that will work. These teams have paid scouts and coaches. Several teams try and sign these undrafted players. So if they couldn't sign him as an undrafted rookie, they will grab him. That's true, especially this year with no rookie minicamp where people came in with tryouts. That's an excellent point. And that's the difference here with the Tuzar Skipper situation. And this is something that maybe I'm missing. And like I said, with Tuzar Skipper, this is me referring back to Tuzar Skipper, if his situation from last year, not his situation now, would be right now. But the other thing is, Tuzar Skipper would not be on this team, would he, Tony?
No.
Because there was no rookie minicamp.
Right.
There would have been no Tuzar Skipper or no Devlin Hodges.
Yeah, he would have had to have really impressed in just in training camp alone last year. He wouldn't have been based on any sort of preseason or anything.
Yeah, so who knows? I mean, Tuzar Skipper, who knows where he'd be right now? Because chances are he would have been in the XFL.
Right.
Where there was some news on that front with it was purchased today by a group that included Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So we'll have to see if we have XFL football coming to us anytime in the coming years. So Dave says, I'm not even going to try to mess up his last name unless you want to give it a go. Is that Tideback? Tideback. We'll say that. I'm not sure. Said veterans are going to have the advantage of making the roster. Yes, they are, because they are known and because of the whole practice squad stuff. I'm telling you, if a player has practice squad eligibility, is going to make a difference if he's on the fringe. I think if there's a guy you're trying to decide, is he 52, 53, or is he the first guy off? If you have to choose between two guys and one of them has practice squad eligibility and the other one doesn't, I think they keep the one that doesn't and try to get the other one that does.
And also because it's such a weird year, it's such an unprecedented year. You never know when one of your positions is going to be hit with a couple of COVID IRs. So you might have to have an extra safety on your practice squad or an extra lineman or an extra linebacker. You just never know.
Yeah. So Thaddeus throws it in here. He says, us as fans will be surprised, but other coaches and scouts aren't surprised. That's a good point, but there's two different types of players. That's why I said like a Trajan Bandy, who apparently a lot of people might have been reaching out to him as an undrafted free agent right after the draft. And he chose to come to Pittsburgh. I don't remember if it was him or if that was someone else I have in my mind, but I know there was one specifically that came to Pittsburgh. That's different than a guy that's like, wow, no one's phone was ringing for him. And the Steelers still find those kind of guys too. Mm-hmm. So there's such a wide range here. And the problem is the Steelers, how do you gauge if you can get them through or not? Or do you just have to say, you know what, typical Mike Tomlin, we got to take care of our own business. We can't worry about what other people are doing. We're going to keep we're going to keep our best 53 on this roster regardless. And we don't care if other people want them or not. And we're going to keep who we judge are the best 16 guys that are still eligible for this practice squad. And we're not going to overthink it. And that's going to be our standard, is the standard as we paint the board red with a broad brush. Does that sound like something Tomlin would say?
It sounds exactly like something he would say. Very pragmatic and right to the point, but sprinkled in with a lot of Tomlinisms that make the headlines.
Yeah. This is something that I need to look into about having 6 of 16 practice squad players be veterans this year only. I'm not sure that that's the full veterans like anyone. Like I don't think Ben Roethlisberger can go on the practice squad.
Or even
yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Or probably any vested veteran, even like Big Dan McCullers probably wouldn't be eligible for that.
I've got to look more into this because the rules have changed so much, and I still can't find a written copy of what the teams agreed on specifically for 2020 in the CBA. That's what I'm still looking for. So almost everything is reported. But when you talk about past practice squads, you were only allowed to have so many players that had X number of accrued seasons that were still considered practice squad eligible. You were only allowed to have either 2 or 3 of those players in the past. That might be what that 6 is that Dave's talking about. If he's got a source that could confirm that that's any player, that would be really nice to know. But there are certain players that are practice squad eligible that you're only allowed to have so many of them on your practice squad. Right. There's a lot into it, and I would really like to dive into it more, but I'm still waiting for an official document that I can spend my hours reading, rather than paying attention to my family, because that's kind of how this job goes sometimes. Have you heard anything on that front, Tony?
That's the first I've ever seen that, but this is such a unprecedented year. I mean, these rules, nothing would surprise me at this point. The way this year is, as far as what to expect, but it seems to me like just about any veteran allowed on the practice squad. I don't see that at all. Like, I mean. Yeah. If they have so many years in the NFL, I don't see how they would even accept a being signed to the practice squad.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a major difference in pay and things of that sort. Wes brought up, as far as squeezing players onto the practice squad, I think they will be smart about it. Guys they want to develop but think they will lose, they'll find a spot for them. But the fact is, we are going to lose some practice squad players. That's inevitable. I think, yes, you will, but I also think that there'll be guys that they might have lost otherwise that are overperforming, that were more NFL ready and overperforming their draft status than what people realized. Those are the guys that the Steelers like, oh, we have someone good here. But if they're that good, do you really want to take the chance? This is all speculation. We have no idea what the Steelers are going to do. So I did see that we had another super chat question that I hadn't got to yet that I got to try to find. Did we have another one? Yes. Or was it just, oh, wait, that just might be, or is that the same one from before?
I remember seeing
that was the same one with Dave. Nope, it was the same person, but it's a different comment. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep it straight here. I'm not as savvy as BAD with this. So $5 in the tip jar from Dave Shipley. You want to take this one, Tony?
Yeah, sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Steelers are allowed 6 players on their practice squad of any maturity, whether they're eligible or not, and they are.
Yes, which was the other one that I clicked on as well. So that's that's something that I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's confirmed that it's of any eligibility, or if they're talking specifically of the ones, because I know there's some weird rules with the practice squad. There's a rule that if you don't carry a full practice squad for all 17 weeks of the NFL season, you are not eligible to have third-year players the next year. Did you know that was a rule, Tony?
I did not. But I mean,
yeah, meaning if someone's in their third year of eligibility for the practice squad, I'm using air quotes of that for those of you listening in audio form, that's when it gets tricky. Those third year guys that you're only allowed to keep so many of them on your team, according to the previous CBA. That was supposed to be changing some. I don't know if that was completely going away or what they were doing. And then you had this year. So that might be true about these veterans. And if that's the case, that changes things with someone. I don't think we're going to see it that much. I think you're exactly right. I think that if you're really a veteran guy, I mean, the only way I see that happening is let's use the Dan McCullers, for example. If the Steelers cut Dan McCullers and they're able to have him on the practice squad because of this new rule, what are you going to do if you're Dan McCullers? You're going to jump on the Steelers practice squad?
No,
I'm going to try to find someone else that needs another D tackle.
Right. Yeah. You're not going to, and would the union allow that? I mean, unions are pretty strict, as far as protecting their own. Are they going to? Would they have signed off on that? Like a vested veteran, a guy who's been in the league for a number of years. Sorry, we can take the practice squad spot. I don't know if they would even go for that. But who knows? Again, this is a weird year, and it's going to be. There's probably never going to be another year like this training camp. So, I mean, it very well may be the case. I don't know.
Yeah, and Dave Shipley was following up. He said it's on the Steelers website, exactly how that goes. So if that's your source, then that's something that we need to look at. Where even Wes was saying, this was even back when it was a 14-man practice squad. Like I say, it's a lot of this is still speculation, because I don't know that teams could announce what it officially could be, because they haven't officially ratified and announced all the 2020 rules between the NFL and the NFLPA. So although they might understand it, I don't know what they can say, because remember, it's all about when things are official. Because I never finished Wes's question or statement, but I'll get it back up here. For example, the Steelers officially announced Curtis Riley being signed to the team today. We didn't redo that article because that all came about on, was that Friday or Thursday? I'm getting my days confused.
Yeah, it was definitely right before the weekend.
Yeah, it was last week when it was
considered
reported.
A done deal. Yeah.
Yes, but it wasn't made official by the Steelers yet. The NFL has the same thing. There are things that come out from various NFL sources. You get Adam Schefter, you get Tom Pelissero, if I say that right. A lot of other people. Dan Graziano had a lot of stuff when it came down to CBA stuff. That they report things, and usually they are correct, but nothing is official until we actually get it from the NFL. And that's why, like what Wes was saying, he's like, as he understands, 4 veterans of any number of NFL experience. However, that was when the practice squad was 14. Now it's 16 by all reports. So, so now, like Dennis is going back and quoting about in 2020 and 2021 league years, practice squads will go to 12 players. That was under the new CBA. Because all these new rules of the 16 and these players, these are all generated from COVID. Right. So that's basically what we're going with. But Tony, we've got to make sure that we at least take a 5 minutes or so just to let anyone fire any general questions at us before we close things up. So I put that out there to make sure that right now I'm looking specifically for questions from the live chat. One thing that I saw right before that from Dallas, he says, now that Washington is out, Claypool should be our number 3. Shocking. James Washington going on the reserve COVID-19 list over this weekend when the Steelers also, they put 2 guys on the list. It was Washington and Samuels, and then they released 8 players. The roster move today, right before the show, was the Steelers' first player, Arian Springs, that was put on the COVID list. He was removed from the list, but also subsequently released because the Steelers had to keep it at 80. Just because Washington's on this list now does not mean Washington will stay on this list long. As you can see, Springs was 7 days. Right. Doesn't mean, and the difference in the length is going to be, did they have a positive test? And did they have a positive test with symptoms? Were they exposed to someone with a positive test? You could have positive test and no symptoms and still be back in as soon as 5 days based on the protocol. But that all, that depends on this, on symptoms and everything else. But that's, I would not say Washington's going to be out for an extended period of time because, as we know, we have more than a month until the Steelers' first game. Right. So we're still trying to get a definite answer with that. How many players with an indefinite number of accrued seasons? Let's get to this question, Tony, from Wes. How concerned are you right now about Cam Hayward's contract status?
I don't know. Like, with everything going on with the cut in salary cap, with the reduced salary cap from 198 this year to 175 next year, there's gonna be a lot of tough decisions that have to be made. And when you got T.J. Watt and you got Minkah Fitzpatrick, and you got these young guys, Juju, James Conner, a guy like Cam Hayward, he'll be heading into his 10th year this year. How much are they going to be willing to pay him, and how much is he going to be willing to take as far as a hometown discount? So I'm very concerned about a lot of things, but specifically the older players, them deciding just to move on from those guys.
Yeah, here's the deal, in my opinion. And you mentioned the hometown discount, and I'm going to tweak that a little bit. And here's why. When it comes to Cam Hayward and it comes to the future, that 175 number for the cap, that's the floor. That's the minimum. Now, if there is a full NFL season, and if they can even have maybe some return to fans to the stands, or if they have plenty of advertising on the tarps, depending on all those things, and they get more revenue and they have revenue, then it could be higher than that.
Right.
But let's say the NFL season doesn't play out in its entirety, where if you go strictly off revenue, it would drop it in half or more. It can't go that low. It's only going that low, and then that'll be spread out until it's recouped. So that's the status with that number, which is a great number to know because you can just bank on that being the minimum. And that's the problem with Cam Hayward's contract status right now is
right.
If I was Omar Khan and or Kevin Colbert, who everyone's actually talking to Cam and his representation, I would say, Cam, we want to pay you what you deserve to be paid. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is to wait and see how this season plays out. Are we dealing with this low number next year? Is it going to linger into future years? Because if they re-sign him now, that drops his salary cap hit now because of the signing bonus that then would be spread out. And then he would have a higher cap number next year and beyond. If they say, right, Cam, we want to work out something with you before the end of the league year? As soon as the season's over, we will have a much better idea with the long-term effects of any revenue loss this year, if it's going to affect 2021, if it's going to affect it beyond. But we can give you that signing bonus even in for 2021 if we're cut back, by us being able to have a lower cap number by your contract starting next year. And if that's the year that we're having to take this hit and it's going to bounce back later, then that's going to allow us to give you a contract more for what you're worth. Mm-hmm. So rather than have a hometown discount, can we get a hometown courtesy? Yeah. Great. Of saying, hey, when the clock hits zeros of the last Steelers game of this season, you are our priority. Right. The problem is Cam Hayward is 31. Am I correct?
Yeah, he's probably
somewhere around there.
A little younger than Antonio, who came in 2010. He's 32 now.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to say right around the time. That's still a risk that Hayward then has to take because of injury and everything else. What if he has, especially an injury at his age? So I would understand if Cam wouldn't want to do that, if he'd like to be locked in now. But unfortunately, the Steelers might have to say, this is all we can do now.
Right.
Even if it's, maybe Cam feels better and they do a very short extension to then do another one the next, very soon. So that's what I look to see that's my concern with Cam Hayward, with him being my favorite player. I'm concerned because I don't want him to go anywhere. We don't have a lot of time, so let's try to get another question, because that was such a great question that we had to spend some time on it. So they say, Dave, I'm going to read it and let Tony answer. Who do you think is our dark horse undrafted free agent to make the team? Do you have one, Tony?
The only one that I really like is the punter. I like him a lot, but everything
else. He didn't get cut, surprisingly.
Yeah, he didn't get. He made the initial cut yesterday, so I like him a lot, and I can see them. There's a guy that definitely doesn't need a preseason to impress. He can just impress in training camp, and they can say, "Oh, we like his leg. We know what we have in Jordan Berry. We don't like it all that much. Let's just move on from him and go with the younger guy."
Yeah, I could see that, but I don't think. If I read right, he didn't even punt last year in college.
Yeah. But he has great he has great numbers in college, it's just weird.
Yeah, that's very strange. So, Dallas, he had to clarify on his question. When he thought that he read Washington opted out, not that he was on the reserve list. Those are two different things. Players that opt out for the season, they are out for the season. But if you're on the COVID list, that's just an injury designation. So I completely understand that was the confusion there. So,
do you
I'm trying to find another question. What do you want to say, Tony?
I was going to say, ask you, Dave, do you see any Steelers players opting out, or have they passed that deadline, or is it just how does that work necessarily?
Once again, these are all reports, and a lot of these reports have to do with the signing of the contract and the verification there. It's really difficult to figure that out. That what's going to happen is, as I'm trying to think this through. Wednesday was a tough deadline, or a rough deadline. That they thought it could be. I don't know. People are like, some people are like, they should be able to opt out at any time. Teams need to know. You can't go into a season thinking that you have a player that's going to be there for you, and they decide to opt out hours before the game. So it can't be. So teams have to prepare for the season. So I'm going to do one quick question. You ready? Before we sign off here, Tony, you can probably answer this in one word. Should we be worried if the Baltimore Ravens sign Antonio Brown?
Yes.
My answer is no.
Okay.
Because first of all, you don't have to worry about it for 8 weeks. Second of all, as much as he can bring on the field, it's almost like you're bringing in your own self-destruct button. Do you really want to sign a self-destruct button that could be pressed at any time? Meaning self-destruct your team, not just the person.
Right.
Meaning that's what could happen in the locker room. We'll see what happens there. So, Tony, I would have loved to get to more questions, but I just ran out of time because did you even say anything this show, or did I talk the whole time?
I said some stuff. I don't know how effective the things I said. I don't know how coherent I was, but I tried to say some things. Yeah, you did a good job. You did a great job.
Yeah, you said some great things. We have our regular lineup. You're going to have your whole lineup of shows coming on YouTube. With tomorrow night with the new Scobro show, Wednesday night the new show with Michael and Jeffrey called Beck in Black. Thursday night preview, that's going to be Jeff coming back on the preview. Friday night live, Mike, or Friday sometime. I don't want to necessarily Mike. Steelers brunch with Tony Saturday. Tales from 2 a.m. with Brian Sunday. Back with Q&A Monday. New audio only podcasts in the morning. Tony, you excited about all this?
I'm excited about it, and I can't wait for real football to start. I'm chomping at the bit.
Tony, in the words of Bart Scott, can't wait.
Can't wait.
As Rowdy Roddy Piper says, you got to say it because I'm going to screw it up.
Geez, which
Just
my,
when you
I
think you have all the answers.
That's right. Yeah, we keep changing the questions. I couldn't get my own somebody else's part.
That's great. Thanks for joining us. We love you. See you next time, Steelers Nation.